Hey, Steven, we got to figure out an intro to the podcast.
That works.
Tahir, I'm going to hand over to you now for some information on like how to set up the team for success. I mean, again, having come from the MSP space for a long time, and I know you're developing a lot of content and assets around this through MSP Camp. Would love to kind of get your thoughts on how to actually train and some actions that MSPs can take to actually train their team when it comes to setting up for success for getting more sales.
Yeah. So I purposely tried to make it only a few slides because I really am just trying to include the stuff that I feel like really moved the needle when it comes to getting our entire team on board with growth. So there's really only 3 or 4 slides, but I hope that there's going to be some value here. So I had a really good conversation with Simon Moore. He's the head of marketing over at ScalePad. And we were talking about marketing. He basically said everything is marketing. And I loved this perspective. Is that every interaction you have with a customer, with a prospect, with everything is marketing. 100% of it is marketing. And I love that. The owner of Alltech always used to say, everyone's on help desk. And I was like, great, I love that. Everyone is also in marketing. And so here's a great example of that to really put in perspective why this stuff is so important. About 2 years ago, we started getting a lot of complaints from clients. Our referrals were like drying up. And even though we have a lot of marketing going on, we still love referrals. Like people talk shit on referrals, but referrals are gold. No matter how big you are as an MSP, referrals are great. So when I see referrals going down, even though we're growing, we have more clients, we should have a bigger referral base. That's alarming. And we started getting these complaints. These complaints are like, yeah, we feel like you guys are growing too fast. And I'm the guy that's growing the business. So I'm like, I don't understand. We're not growing any faster than we were. And we're hiring as we're growing. All of the SLAs are exactly the same. The service has been unchanged, yet something has changed. For some reason, we're getting a lot of complaints. And then I noticed that the Teams channel that the techs go to let us know there's an opportunity is called sales.
No, okay.
And not account management, right? And I was like, let me look. I looked at a service ticket and someone was having an issue with their Microsoft 365. It was a wonderful upsell opportunity to Microsoft 365 Business Premium. So he said, I'm going to have sales reach out to you. That was it. I changed the channel name to account management instead of sales. Immediately, the techs were pretty much trained right away. No, we're not saying sales anymore. It took one channel name and us just letting everybody know, hey, we're actually not going to say sales anymore. We're going to say account management. Because when your client that trusts you and loves you is hearing that anything they need changed on their account, they're going to be contacted by a salesperson. It literally gets them more distanced from you as an MSP. And that distance is real. And that friction is real. And literally that change within a couple of weeks, the complaints went away and we started getting referrals again. So I tell that example for a couple of reasons. One, it's not difficult to train an entire organization fairly quickly if you make the right moves, but you can also be missing opportunity by simple things like that within your organization because everything is marketing. Them saying sales instead of account management change the perspective and perception of a client we've had for 10 years. One word. So I hope that makes sense as we get into kind of the next step of this portion of it. So you can move to the next one, George. But I just kind of wanted to like frame that. Does that make sense to you, George? Why
Yeah, I
do
love
you
it. I
kind
think
of feel
it's
that way?
even just within, yeah, I think that not once you begin to think about it, even in your own personal buying habits, right? If
Yeah,
someone is an account manager versus you hear from, hi, it's Sally from sales, you're like, ugh, go away, Sally. You know what I mean? Like because
yeah,
people kind of got that guard up against
yeah.
sales. So yeah, really good point.
And even if it is a legitimate sales opportunity where it's a prospect, which happens all the time, still saying account management, right? Hey, we're going to get you to an account manager. We're going to get you, a lot of other MSPs have different things like client success, which I love. Whatever verbiage we want to use, other than the sales guy is going to reach out to you. Because now it goes from, hey, we're going to sell you something to, hey, we're going to take care of you. All right. So I just wanted to go over some very specific things that we did in our MSP that really had a tangible effort and move the needle. The first one is we would actually have me and Colin go to different help desk meetings and let them know, give them a short presentation on, different services. How do we get the head nods from customers? When does the customer need it? Because we think our techs know, right? Our techs deploy it, they support it. We think they'd be able to have the conversation to sell it or at least recommend it, but the reality is they kind of don't, and that's fine. They're busy. So having that conversation, we actually get the account managers in explaining this is usually how we communicate this, and this is usually where you're going to see the opportunity. It really helped kind of get everyone on board with kind of how to sell, or at least prime it before they get it to that channel. And if you don't have a sales or account management and you're the owner, great, you should do that every week. And if you do those EOS meetings or any other meeting you do with your team, have a 5-minute portion of it where you're communicating a service. Now I'm going to skip down to the bottom, and I want to tie these together here. Make sure your team knows what campaign. Oh, sorry, no, not the bottom slide. I meant like the bottom point here, just for people to tag along. If you're running a cybersecurity campaign, or you're running an MDR campaign, or you're running a VoIP campaign, or whatever campaign you're running that month or quarter, you are shooting yourself in the foot if your entire team doesn't know what campaign you're running. Because yeah, that campaign might be, hey, I'm trying to get prospects. But at the end of the day, every time we run a campaign, we usually get some solid MRR and projects out of our current client base. And so even though we're marketing to prospects, sometimes marketing to clients, making sure your team understands what you are marketing right now is so vitally important, yet it's missed all the time. We want to market in a vacuum. So we can tie these two together when we're speaking with them on the weekly meetings. Is, hey, this is the campaign we're running. This is what some of the content looks like. These are the pain points and opportunities that we're going after. So if you see a client, when you're in a conversation with them, or if you see a prospect, we've literally gotten leads from somebody that has been at a dealership and has had, they've had issues with their computers. They tipped me off and I call them, right? So making sure they know what campaign is currently being run this month or this quarter, and tying that in with these trainings. Okay, I hope I didn't go too hard on that. Just wanted to kind of explain that. Scenario training, give really specific scenarios. Again, these kind of tie in, but you notice a client has a lot of spam. Awesome. We're going to get them on email threat protection or Graphis or whatever it is that we're selling. A great story around MDR. So the story we always like to say is either the case study of a prospect that came on, we put MDR on, literally we were able to roll back ransomware and it saved them ridiculous amount of money. So we use that, again, specific story. Like if they didn't have that, it would have been days and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they have it. So we rolled it back. We're good to go. It was beautiful. Another thing is scenario training on, hey, you have somebody calls you. The computer is 4 years old. It's got a hard disk drive, or it's only got 8 gigs of RAM, or it's on an i3, these different criteria. Are you going to recommend that they replace it or upgrade the computer? In some cases, yeah, we just upgrade the computer. You hit the account management channel, and you say, hey, we're just upgrading it. Or is this a good scenario to say, hey, go ahead and start priming the client conversation that it's probably going to be an upgrade, so you're going to prime that conversation for account management. So when they take over and they call, the client's already kind of ready to accept that hardware.
Yeah, no one likes surprises.
Yeah, we do a lot of priming. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but we do a ton of priming within our MSP, like just planting the seeds as much as possible with that scale pad hardware report we send every single month. Shows what's green, what's red. I think Alltech might now be using Augment, and it's like there's value in constant priming and seeding. So it's not just always in your face. It's just like, hey, there's these issues. So when we have that conversation in the next QBR, you're ready to make a move. All right, but that's a whole nother conversation. Quick feedback when the tech gives a good recommendation or referral. So make sure you blast out to the whole company. Hey, good job, Alex, for referring us to this, blah, 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 which we're actually going to talk about a little bit on the next slide. And then making sure everybody knows what an ideal prospect looks like. You'd be surprised how many times somebody in your organization is going to try and refer you a computer repair thing. You're like, you work here. We're an MSP. We do business on a monthly agreement. Why are you referring me your friend that has a broken computer. What are we doing here? Right? Like, it's kind of crazy how often you will run into that before you start training your team on no. What does an ideal prospect looks like? In our case, it's usually about 10 computers minimum, $1,000 a month minimum. So if they have 3, 4 computers, you don't even have to worry about telling me about it.
Mm-hmm. And what are some simple qualifying questions that you can just rattle off as soon as that conversation is starting up, right? So you instantly know, and then that way you have your information. You can be like, okay, cool, yeah, this person is of interest to my MSP business or to the MSP I work for, versus, oh no, probably not for us. So we can just be polite and begin to wrap this up. A really good example, I see that all the time, is guys looking to standardize everyone on Microsoft, which is fine because they want it, that's what they want to focus on. And so if you bump into someone at the bar, at the dealership, wherever it is, ask them if they're using Microsoft. Well, we're a massive school. We have loads of users. We definitely need an IT person. Instead of jumping the gun and being like, great, we can be that, we can do this for you. Da, da. Well, what are you guys using at the school? Are you using Microsoft? No, we use Google. Okay, well, great. Well, now you know that, yeah, that would be a nice client, but if you don't want to be managing Google and having to deal with a completely different technical ecosystem and all the headaches that comes with it, then they're not the right client for you. But then are they open to moving to Microsoft?
Yeah,
And do they need help with that migration? That's the direction you can take the conversation in.
yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we give very few criteria. Like, we teach what an ideal prospect is, but when it comes to like when do you get it to account management or when do you get it to me, I don't put too much hampering on them because it's like, look, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll go through that process with them, but I just don't send me any business name that's got 3 users or 5 users. Like, I can't. No, but if they got 100 users and they're using G Suite or Workspace, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Just give me the name. Like, I'll go bring them donuts and I'll get them to move to Microsoft. Like, I'll get that all figured out on my end. So yeah, part of the training is like, what does an ideal prospect look like? But also, if you get a good or an opportunity, just get it to us. We'll kind of figure it out from there, except for these minimal criteria like size, you know.
Here, do you have any experience or something that we hear a lot, but people say it, but do you have any stories around the concept that sometimes your smallest customers give you the most headaches for the least amount of dollars? So they want all your time for none of your money, and often the best thing to do is to just fire those guys and let them go. Have you seen any truth or have had any direct experience with that in the past?
It's a great question, and that is a huge question that I could go into in depth. But I think just for sake of time, there's a lot of truth to it, which is why I have a minimum. But the reality is, another reason I went to minimum is I was bonused off of profitability of the company. So
Mm.
I do not want to waste my time if a company's not moving the needle on our profitability. Whereas for another salesperson that may have a little more time, they can close those under $1,000 deals, and it would be worth it for the company and for them because they're going to get a spiff out of it. The company could make it profitable, etc. But I think at the end of the day, MSPs need to have a way of identifying if a client is profitable or not, because we have some clients that are 5 employees and they pay us $2,000 a month and they don't call us that much. So like, it goes both ways. And then we have large clients that's like, oh man, they're paying us $8,000 a month, but they're driving us effing crazy. So I think, as a general rule, yes, as you scale up in size, it does not mean more work in the MSP space. That's why we like to go for those big ones. But at the end of the day, if you're a smaller MSP, don't be scared to take the smaller ones. You can make them profitable, especially if you mark the price up correctly and you have a good statement of work and you get them set up right. So don't let me boo-hoo small organizations, because there's a lot more companies that are 1 to 10 than there are probably 10 to 100. So, but just as a general rule, because I got busier and busier, especially my last couple of years, I only wanted to go after them if they're like 5K and up, which actually worked beautiful because we were doing less onboarding and we were making more money. So
More time.
yeah, it worked out pretty well. All right.
I think that actually kind of brings us on nicely to your next slide. Unless was there any other points that we didn't cover here on the
No,
training?
that was pretty much it there. Yeah,
That's
just
a
being
nice.
really intentional about teaching your staff, and then this one will kind of tie it together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, though I love this idea of like incentivizing growth and not just having salespeople that have access to spiffs or commissions. So walk us through that to hear.
So I think it's so crazy that more organizations, not just MSP space, by the way, in all organizations, we love to just pay a salary. We love to say, here's your salary, this is what you get, you got to work for me, and you're going to get a 3% raise every year, and you need to be happy with that. To me, that's bullshit. I think that's crazy. I think it's silly. I think we're all shooting ourselves in the foot in that way. I think at the end of the day, a salary is like a base commission, right? Like, or a base just for a salesperson, right? I think a salesperson is going to have a whole lot more upside on commission, but I think every person in an organization, everybody should have a base or a performance pay. Like, here's an example. I'm going to be hiring a web developer because we're going to start doing more websites. That web developer is going to get a base salary, but I'm also going to give them a bonus when they complete a website to the client and to my satisfaction, because that's going to do two things. One, it's going to keep them motivated to knock out sites fast. And two, I'm going to tell them in every site that we get, as you expand the team, you're going to get a bonus. So not only is it let's do it quickly, it's let's do it right, because I want to get more referrals, because I'm actually making more money as the business is making more money. So I say all that as a preface to say, how did we remove or reduce the principal agent problem at All Tech Services? We did a bonus structure based on the profitability of the company plus how long you've been at the company. So literally, it was like night and day. I would close a company. It drove me effing crazy because I'm the sales guy. I'm bringing the clients on. I get excited. No one else gets excited, which is fine. But they were boo-hooing. Everyone got upset when we brought a new client on because they're already stressed out. They're already busy.
Right. Yeah.
We put this bonus in place the first quarter. Even the lowest level person got like, I don't know, an extra $1,200 that quarter, right? And then the higher level people really got paid well. All the boohooing stopped. Almost immediately, all the boohooing stopped. And all of that training we had been doing, and we're like, well, yeah, they're getting it. And we're getting a little more referrals. We're getting a little bit more from the team. Grew a lot faster because now not only are they trained on how to get us the lead, but they're incentivized because they know as the company grows and they're here longer, they're literally putting more money in their own pocket. Just like that. And so it's two things. One, it keeps them incentivized. We're all on board with growth. We're all on the marketing team. We're all on the sales team. But two, as we get techs that are trained and they're with the company longer and longer, it becomes harder and harder for them to leave. Yeah, they're getting their salary. It's moving up 3-6%, whatever. But those bonuses every quarter keep going up.
I think that's such a really, really important point as well, because we know that there is going to continuously be a massive shortage of talent in the technical space, right? Across the board, whether you're, top level cybersecurity expert at a dedicated, SOC or sophisticated MSSP, right down to finding some 18-year-old out of high school to come in and work help desk for you. Like, it's going to be a real struggle. So again, another little phrase that I've heard is retention is the new recruitment. Right. So it's focus on your retention as much, if not more, than your recruitment. Because again, as business owners or as managers, we know how irritating and frustrating it can be, one, to go through the process of finding people, the interviews, the questions, the judgment calls, then getting that person onboarded and ramped up can take, weeks, if not months at a time, depending on the position, all for them, after 6-7 months to leave for something better. I spoke, there's an MSP friend of mine had this exact problem. He went through a 2-year cycle where he went through about 4 or 5 different techs, and it was that 6-month cycle of finding someone, finding the right person, negotiating, hiring, ramping up. Then they would leave after 3 or 4 months, and he was back to square one with not really any type of scalability. So I think that this incentivizing piece is huge, and definitely something that smart modern MSPs will start implementing. Do you think, Taher, it's important to get, like, because I love the idea of you have to, where you mentioned like the web developer, like you have to be able to create different columns and different I guess like packages, because
100%. Yeah, everyone's going
to be linked to revenue, right? So you have to be really specific about what qualifies for the compensation or bonus.
I think that everything is tied to revenue. I mean, for the most part, everything's tied to revenue. They just might not be revenue generating roles, but like even the administrative assistant is tied to keeping shit off my plate so I can make us more money. So yeah, like 100% each one's going to need to have its own, like, pay for performance is a whole nother, it's a whole study in itself, but it's so important. It is so important. And this is a general one for techs, like the salespeople, the account management didn't get this, right? Because they have their own pay for performance. A couple things to kind of tie this whole thing in, really kind of put the emphasis on why incentivizing is so important. Y'all been in business longer than me. I've been a business owner now for 2 months, right? MSP Camp's been around for 15 months, but I've only been a business owner for 2 months. So y'all know more than I do. But just in the little time that I've been doing this, I understand incentives are pretty much everything in business, whether it's the owner, whether it's the marketer, whatever it is, it all comes down to incentives. What am I incentivized to do? And here's a wonderful example of how this is all played out. Not only does it have the other positive externalities we've talked about, it also has a thing if they're not rushing for us to hire another person, which if you're an MSP that's more than, even $500,000, how much pressure are you getting from your team to hire another person right now? A shitload for sure. But when they understand that if we hire another person too early, the profitability of the company goes down, our bonuses go down. So, and now the other positive externality is like, no, I don't think we need to hire somebody. Like, Greg, I think we got this. And here's the cherry on top. In the last 15 months, we've added $1 million in revenue, in reoccurring revenue, right? And I think we're coming up on 5+ million now as a company. We haven't needed an additional body. What can you do with $1 million more without an additional person to support that $1 million? In fact, I left Alltech and I took the whole marketing team. So there's less people at Alltech today than there were when we were $1 million less of a company. Tom just bought a big ass new boat. So I have a feeling that this whole incentive thing, as well as a lot of other things we were working on, worked pretty well.
Yeah. No, it's huge. I think it's a really nice way to bring things back full circle. If we come back to that little story of like the tech in the bar and someone chatting with them about IT, all of a sudden that light bulb goes off and they can say, well, if I can just get this guy into our funnel by giving him a card, getting him booked into someone's calendar for that particular person to then start moving the process, well, that's great, because if this person ends up getting a closed deal from it, that adds to the revenue of the company, which adds to my incentivized bonus. And I've just been here on a Friday night, watching a game down at the sports bar, and I'm still helping generate revenue for the company through a casual conversation. But to have that and make it effective, I think the summary here is you have to have, one, those incentive bonuses in place with strict criteria so people understand what those metrics and KPIs are. Two, you need to have a really clear process around what your call to action is. What is the thing that people are at your organization are funneling prospects and customers to? For me, we've used the example of a risk assessment just to get someone in the door, but I'm sure there's lots of other creative examples you guys can think of. And get everyone singing off that same hymn sheet and directing it towards that particular department, whether it's sales, that particular individual, whoever it might be, and get it all tracked. And I love your last point as well. Like, don't worry about who gets the credit.
Yeah,
right?
I almost missed that. That's a good point. That's something that's so important. Literally, everyone here listening, like, just make sure, especially if you're the salesperson. I doubt you're gonna have this problem as an owner, but like, there were times where like I'd been planting a seed with a prospect forever to do this thing, or a customer do this thing, and like a tech mentions something, and the tech gets all the credit for them doing that thing. I don't care. I didn't care. I don't care. It's important that we don't care who gets credit. In fact, make sure you give the credit. All we care about, let's move the needle forward. Don't matter who gets the credit for the client coming in or getting the upsell, etc. I mean,
Again, and yeah, the incentive takes care of that. There's nothing worse
yeah,
than feeling like you've contributed to something successful, and then the salesperson is like, yeah, and I closed this guy, and you're kind of left there thinking, okay, so this guy's taking all the credit, is getting commission, and yeah, it can actually have the opposite effect, right? It can be very
yes,
demotivating because your contributions aren't acknowledged, and you're not really seeing, any type of financial incentive off the back either. So
yeah, it goes back to that quick feedback. I have, anytime I get any value, any leads, anything, I blow up the team's chat like, good job,
yeah,
X
yeah,
tech.
huge
So anyway,
positive reinforcement. Last slide here. Do you want to talk about some low hanging fruit leads, maybe just for some people who can kind of go out and just make it easy to get some more people into their funnel? What kind of things are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I'll do this for like a minute just in case there's any questions. I want to make sure I save some time. I think I've talked a little too much here. So low hanging fruit leads. So these are things that basically I just want to make sure I explain, like, these are the easy things. Like, it's easy to get VoIP leads from your current client base, from your team. Like when I tell the team we're doing a VoIP push, oh boy, do we get like VoIP leads, because people are like, oh yeah, they got this shitty, phone system, reach out, and we close it because yeah, VoIP's easy to sell. Hardware super easy. Like, they're letting us know, hey, this, obviously that we know the hardware reports, and we know we already approached them about the computers are getting old, but the tech can really plant the seed and send it to the board, and boom, we replace computers, hourly at this point, with 40 something or 4,000 under management. Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Again, not every sale needs to be a direct money maker. We just love when clients are on Business Premium. Makes our life way easier. And then you got Augment to make sure the Business Premium settings are all looking good.
Yeah, and it works for not just premium, but basic as well. I think that the key point there is, I love the idea. It doesn't need to be a money maker. We'd like and can help you make money, but also there's the other side of that profitability coin, like is efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So you money by like adding more revenue, whether it's more endpoints or upcharging, but if you can actually just increase your margin, because all of a sudden, instead of having one tech being able to manage, say, 50 endpoints, they can manage 250 endpoints because you're able to use smart automations and have everything connected in a sophisticated way. Well, you've just freed up a ton of time, or maybe even a whole other body. And coming back to Tahir's earlier point of, well, actually, we've got an extra $1 million and we still don't have to hire somebody else. Yeah. So what can we actually do with that money to help grow the business further? That's not going to eat into our own profitability. So different side of the same profitability coin.
Yeah. And then spam filtering, obviously, like, oh, got a spam issue. It's very easy for the team to know how to sell spam filtering. Not that they're selling themselves, but they know how to prime the conversation. They know what it looks like, and then they can get it to the account management board, and we sell it that same day, right? So lots of low-hanging fruit stuff to get, like what we talked about today in this webinar. Like, okay, that's great, but now, like, let's execute on some of this, and you'll literally see money come out of it like in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's why I like this webinar, because it's like not only actionable, like, well, how do we do it, but also like, what is low-hanging fruit dollar signs that we can kind of go get right now.
Yeah, I would say if you're an MSP owner, like take this weekend, crack a beer, get a cup of coffee, and kind of a pen and paper, start writing out what some incentives might look like across your different departments and employees, and think about what that main call to action is. And then Monday, Tuesday morning, sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to start rolling out and paying people incentives based on like revenue sharing of the company. Here's what we're looking to get people in the door for the rest of the quarter. Okay, we're going to start offering risk audits or cybersecurity risk assessments, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what do you need from me to help implement this new program?
Yeah, and like my biggest thing, like, let's say we start small, even if we're doing $10,000 a quarter, and we might think, oh my God, it's 10,000 less dollars I'm going to make. Zero chance, literally zero chance. If you're giving away $10,000 a quarter, you're not going to make 10,000 more dollars. If you have everybody on board with growth, like, it's literally impossible, no matter the size of your MSP. So we need to just not worry about how much we're giving out. We need to realize that that is a true go giver mentality. You're going to give it out and you're going to get it back, 3x, 4x. So,
and your employees notice that too, right? Your employees notice that too. Don't think they don't notice. Like, I love the idea of the example, people buying boats and stuff. If your employees see you're buying boats and they're still kind of looking at their paycheck going, what? Whereas versus you might still be buying boats, but they know they're also getting a bonus every month or every quarter based on the direct impact that they make from their particular department or role. Yeah, it just continues to ramp and scale like you wouldn't believe.
100%. Yeah.
So we'll wrap things up there, guys, because we're short on time. I see a couple of questions that have come in. So James, will this recording be made available? Yes, guys, all our webinars go as an on-demand webinar on the Augment website. So that will be available for you guys to access. James, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want, just George Smith Augment. Don't be, LinkedIning George Smith. You'll be scrolling for a while with all of the George Smiths out there. So include Augment, and I can send you the direct link so you don't have to plug in your information again. We've got another anonymous attendee. How do you expand an account where you have the smallest footprint, like you've only sold them hardware or only managed their VoIP? Asking 1,000 inquiry questions is a barrier for MSPs. Great question, really good question. I would definitely, for me personally, just because I have a bit of a focus on cybersecurity, I would start talking about that. I would maybe do a little bit of a factual and educational presentation, just highlighting like the fact that it's crazy at the minute. And feel free, Mr. Anonymous person, to reach out to me. I can definitely send you over some stats and studies that you can pull stuff from. Or if you become an Augment partner, we've got tons of resources. I know MSP Camp has lots of great collateral as well, but use that opportunity to educate so they understand the landscape, and then begin to talk about some of the other services that you can offer. So whether it's backup, email security, start with Microsoft, highlight the fact that it's the #1 business application that makes the most attacked. How confident are they in their Microsoft security? Can you give me the opportunity to run a free audit and I can show you a report for free that is basically like the health check of your Microsoft? That gets your foot in the door. From there, you're able to have conversations around risk, around productivity, around cost, all those different things. Taher, do you have anything, any kind of different opinions, or have you had any experience in the past of expanding accounts where you're only selling hardware or VoIP?
I think you made a really good point by leading in with cybersecurity. I know there's a lot of people that do that, and I think that's gold. Another thing I always did is that's why I would sell VoIP by itself, not because I'm making a bunch of money on the reoccurring residual or the spiff. That's cool and all, but that's now a lead. It's a lead I make money on, right? And so any of those, it's good that you have some clients that you don't have all managed services with, because I mean, obviously you want to get them on there, but these are all leads. Just treat them like leads, like literally nurture them like leads. Like, yeah, I got my phone system in, or maybe I got a firewall on for you, or maybe I'm doing a monitor agreement for you, or maybe I'm break fix for you, whatever. You are treating them like they are a cold lead. You got email marketing going to them, you've got postcards going to them, you are stopping in with donuts. Like, I would be so damn annoying when I know, wait a minute, you're a 20 employee company and you're only paying me $300 a month. That ain't gonna last long. Because the whole matrix, everyone talks about it, but it's like, okay, what of our clients and what do our clients have? You put X's, what they have and what they don't have. Everyone talks to the matrix, but that thing is gold. Like, if you actually live by that and you see, like, oh my God, you can literally look at the opportunity in your client base. You're like, holy shit, there's $50,000 worth of MRR value right here with just my client base. So treat them like leads. And obviously there's a million, I'm not going to go into nurturing techniques and marketing and all that right now, but like, yeah, there's lots of ways to kind of take advantage of that for sure.
I've got another question, another really good question that's coming here. Pay for performance sounds amazing, but at the end of the day, there's not enough money to go around. I assume the recommendation is to raise our rates. Without opening your books, I would say, yeah, probably, maybe, but also understand that whenever you begin to add and generate more business, that is generating more money. All right. So for example, if you're looking at things today and things are kind of balanced, and you're like, well, I can't really afford to give someone any more money, you can just simply start by saying, for all new revenue coming in, I'm going to be actually giving away whatever it is, 50, 60, 20%. You need to kind of work that out for yourself. I mean, I'd be happy to have that conversation in private and give some more tips. But what I'm saying is whenever new money comes in, take that opportunity to spread the wealth then. You're not like if you sign up a new customer for 10 grand or whatever it is, instead of doing what you would usually do, like take that opportunity to jig some things so everyone shares the wealth of that 10 grand, and then watch as that continues to increase over time. The other thing I'll say just about raising rates in general is, yeah, it's something I've seen at MSPs struggle with. I think the average MSP today only charges around $65 to $72 per seat or per end user, which is criminally undercharging the value that you guys provide. There's programs and sales peer groups out there that are saying you guys should be charging 300, and if you go about it and pitch it in a correct way, there's no reason why you can't get there. It's just kind of getting over the internal fear of that, maybe. But start with education, start with cybersecurity risk assessment. People are making risk-informed decisions all the time. You just need to start building your processes and habits around that. And like I said, ping me on LinkedIn. Happy to go into more detail for anyone who wants to have a little sidebar. Taher, what would you say around the pay for performance, and if there's a lack of funds available to kickstart that?
So much, man. I could talk about this all day. I'm really glad you asked this question, but I'm going to try and keep it as concise as possible. One thing on $300 a user thing, I think it's possible, and I know there's MSPs doing it. What I'm saying is we've been profitable around $100 a user, super profitable. So like, I think to each their own. I think for the MSPs getting 300, that's dope. Like that's amazing. Congrats. But when we go into recession, like those MSPs are the first they're going to start losing their clients. There's not a salesperson on the planet that when a business is struggling with revenue, they're gonna be able to retain a client they're going to be able to retain a client at $300 when there's an MSP that's doing basically the same thing for 150. It just doesn't work out. Like I love that people are doing that. I think it's awesome. I just don't think it's sustainable. That's just my opinion. There are people doing that. So, and I think it's great. I'm just saying I wouldn't do it. Okay. All right. And George, I love that you brought that up because you're right. There's a lot of really good sales strategies and stuff out there to get those kind of numbers. Now, to answer the question, I think we didn't do this pay for performance thing right away. We couldn't afford it right away, right? That's why we took customers that were 5 users, 8 users, 10 users. We were kind of volume at first, which is fine, right? It's a stressful life at first because you're trying to get as many clients as you can. You're trying to get your revenue up. You're trying to get your profit up. And it's a tough time. But it works. I think the best thing to do is, like get good at sales, make sure that when you're quoting it, you got a really nice profit number from day one. But at the same time, if you're small, get some clients in the door. We got to get clients in the door, right? Like I just hear all the time, it's like, oh no, yeah, if they're not going to do my 100% stack, if they're not going to pay me $250 a user, if they're not within 10 miles of my location, I'm not going to take them. It's like, stop. We got to get clients in the door. Yeah, we got to make money on them, but we got to get them in the door because that means our word of mouth grows, our referral base grows. We are more legit. We get more reviews. And to sum it all up, now we have a goal, because if you have a problem and you have enough money to solve the problem, you don't have a problem. And that's why we have to stay focused on growth. We have to. We cannot be complacent, because we're literally shooting ourselves in the foot. Because I can tell from experience what my life used to be like at the MSP, where it was 3 people in a warehouse. I had to scratch and claw and bite to get $1,000 to send a direct mail campaign out. Now, before I left a couple months ago, left on really good terms. The owner is an investor in MSP Camp. He's my father-in-law. He's awesome. Before I left, I could spend any money I wanted because we were a big company now. We have money. So my point is, keep at it, stay motivated, because I promise you, shit does get easier the more money you make. That's just what happens. So anyway, God, I really went on a rant there. I hope that answered your question. Thank you for the question. And,
last other question we've got here, which actually tied into some of the things you touched on to here in terms of people maybe overthinking, oh, they don't live here or they don't focus. Question here from Brian: what are the best strategies for pre-sale strategies, or what is the best strategy for pre-sale strategies for outbound sales third party to better qualify during booked appointments? So I guess what you're saying there, Brian, is how to better qualify clients so that your appointments that you're getting are good quality, right? Yeah, I would say for me, like you need to understand what your ideal customer profile is first and foremost. You can't begin to qualify if you don't know what you're looking for. So maybe are you focused on a certain vertical? Maybe are you focused on a particular service offering or a certain size? My simple thing would be a really simple update you can do is to your form capture. Okay, a lot of people say, what's your first name, last name, phone number, and company name. Great. Book in a meeting here. Add 2 other fields, maybe 3 max. So it's no more than 6 fields. If you get kind of close to 10, people might not be as willing to complete the form. And then ask some additional information. How many employees do they have? What vertical are they in? You can have a drop-down menu just so you have a little bit more information that can help you qualify those organic leads that are coming in.
Yeah.
Brian,
Brian, what
from you on that?
I think you answered it really well, but Brian, what issue are you running into? Like, is somebody setting appointments? Is it like a cold caller setting appointments for you and they're no showing? Or is it that they are showing, but it's like a really bad fit? Like, what are you running into, I guess?
Just while we maybe hear back from Brian, I'll speak to that. That's actually is a really good point there to hear of. Sometimes if you use third parties to book you appointments, they go off appointments booked. Don't do that. I would say
Incentive.
I would say that you have to move the marker to like completed demo or completed whatever the sort of main area of interest is. So for example, for me selfishly at Augment, I could go and get a third party and say I'll pay you for every appointment you book. Now, if I was a smart person, I would just fill that calendar with all my friends and say, here, just book in, don't show, I'm going to get paid for you just filling out this form. So you've got to be smarter than that in this day and age. You've got to say, you will get paid whenever this demo is complete or whenever this call is complete, or if that call moves to a certain status or stage in our sales funnel, like issuing a PO or something. The comparable example is the classic story of the small, medium business that pays for clicks or web traffic to their website. And the web developer says, yeah, sure, how many you want? Well, you want an extra 10,000 visitors a month? Here you go. Fast forward a couple of months, here's your extra 10,000 visitors. That they're here, they're at your website. Well, but I'm not seeing any of that converting to traffic. Yeah, it's because it's from a farm in Indonesia or wherever. It's not actually contributing to your success, right? So if you're using third parties, always be very, very specific in what the success criteria and the payment criteria is.
Yeah, it's so funny. Brian has answered the question here, and that's kind of what I thought you were doing. It's funny because if you look at different cold call companies in the MSP space, like for instance, there's Abstractor or Sapper that does a wonderful job of getting leads for MSPs, but the leads are low value, right? And then you see other ones like Arsenal that get you less leads, but I've heard the leads are higher quality. And when I see these 2 examples, I'm looking at them like, I guarantee the incentive structure is the only difference.
Yeah.
But on Abstract, the callers are getting paid per lead, or maybe they're getting paid higher per appointment. And Arsenal, it's probably like maybe getting paid when the appointment's set and getting paid a whole lot more if it closes, right? Like it all comes down to incentive.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you right now, Brian, if you hired me to be your outbound sales rep and you were paying me on leads per booked, I would fill up your calendar, no problem. But if you tweaked it to say, George, I'm not going to pay you on appointments booked, I'm going to give your bonus is going to be tied to appointments completed, but the biggest chunk is actually going to come from revenue generated off those leads. I sure as heck am going to change my strategy and be a lot more focused and detail oriented into who I'm booking in, so that every shot counts towards getting that revenue, which is what you want, but I'm going to get a chunk of it too, versus filling up your calendar with 100 appointments a week that I get paid a flat rate per appointment. So I think ties nicely into what Tahir's saying, even with third parties, like having the incentive be around the success or the revenue growth of your company. Tahir, any last words from you?
no, man, you did great. This has been fun. I hope we provided some value. Thanks to everyone that showed up. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
That's great. Thanks everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.